So thank you, Anindya, for the invitation. It's great to be here with friends. The work we've been following each other. We're a community of scholars sort of trying to make sense of what's happening in this world of crowdsourcing. My own introduction to this actually happened about 18 years ago. I was working at General Electric in new product development and in a marketing role. And we had just bought major assets of L'Oreal Medical Systems digital radiology business. And so we were pretty excited that we got this technology and we were going to sort of launch it around the world. And I came across a physician in Montreal who was like, I don't want any of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, why? And he was like, well, we've built this all ourselves. And I'm like, aren't you watching like the Sunday morning shows where GE says we bring good things to life? Like we're the ones who bring good things to life, not you. And in fact, I spent some time with them, and in fact, they had in fact solved most of the major engineering challenges that we had laid out for ourselves. And they were ahead of us by about 18 months. So the fit and finish of it looked pretty crappy, but in terms of all the things that needed to get done, they had done already. And they had done this through open source software and through working with communities. And so this became an eternal puzzle for me to say, how could it be that a band of ragtag people around the world could coordinate and create complex software while at the same time GE was far behind? And that's the puzzle that I've been trying to go after. And I work with my lab, and we have a set of scholars working together trying to tackle a bunch of questions around crowdsourcing and its various applications. So the first thing I want you to sort of know about is that there's two different institutions to organize crowds. There's a perspective which is contests and competitions, which is basically you have a problem, you set a prize, and you invite anybody in the world to participate, and you hopefully get a great solution out of it. And here, the main perspective we see in terms of when contests are very effective is when the problem sponsor does not know who the right person might be to solve the problem, or what the right approach may be as well, or both. And we see these things work really well. On the other hand, there is also a community-based model. So open source software, which is where I got my research start, has revolutionized the world of software development, right? If you had asked back in the mid-90s that software would be developed through communities and firms like Apple and even IBM and so forth would be using open source software, you'd be very surprised. So while Natalia said that Apple's designs are actually pretty close, and it's Steve Jobs' mind, or us sort of doing seances with him now, trying to get to what's going on. Apple's software, the core operating system, is about 50% open source. And on their website, they say, we work with the open source community. So Apple has figured out how to, on the one hand, use crowd input, on the other hand, deflect crowd input as well. But community-based software development and other examples like Wikipedia have really changed our perspective on how we might want to organize ourselves. So these are two distinct institutions. Oftentimes they intermingle. So when I first went into Top Coder, I was surprised at how Darwinian it was. Right? I came from this, let's give everybody a big hug and let's do software development together in the open source world. And I come to Top Coder and they're like competing, they have prizes, it's winner take all types of contests. But what I quickly realized is that underlying this competitive model is actually a very active community. So people are sharing knowledge quite a bit. After you finish a contest, people are revealing their code bases and learning from each other as well. So these are distinct institutions on the front end, but on the back end you in fact see lots of intermingling amongst them as well. So what I want to show you first is an example, and I hope this audio works, of a contest we ran on Top Coder. I think it might be this mic. That isn't great. I never had echo ever in my life like this.
One Karim is not enough.
One's not enough, yeah. Great, should we try it? Okay, great. So I'll show you this contest. It's great. Maybe it's this, I don't know, we'll see. And see what we did.
Energy, in one form or another, powers everything and the man-made things floating above it, too. This is the International Space Station. You've probably heard of it. It's powered by the sun, and the sun's energy is captured by the station's solar panels. Ensuring the space station harvests the most energy possible is a complicated task. Why? Well, for one reason, see those large solar panels? Holding them to the station are very long, thin arms called longerons. Anytime an odd number of longerons are in full sunlight, with others in the shadows cast by the rest of the space station, they bend and eventually break. For this reason, ISS operators are careful to position the station to limit shadowing, and so only an even number of longerons are shadowed at one time. However, this conservative positioning reduces the power the station can collect from the sun, thus causing inefficiency. NASA wants more power for the ISS. More power means more science and cool stuff that NASA can do on orbit. NASA needs a sophisticated algorithm, and they think you just might be the key to this whole equation. Introducing the NASA Tournament Labs International Space Station Longeron Challenge. Your solutions just may help power the International Space Station and allow more science from more scientists around the world. Consider this your invitation to blast off with NASA. For more information, visit topcoder.com/ISS if you've got the right stuff.
So I want to first shout out to Clinton. Clinton from Top Coder was the person, our social media expert, that helped us create this video. And this was a minor YouTube celebrity. We had like 150,000 views or so forth on this. Anyway, so this was a contest we ran approximately a year ago to solve one of NASA's challenges. And here's what we got. So we got broad engagement. So in fact, we had 2,000 people sign up to participate in the contest. And we had submissions from 459 of them. Great. This is so awesome. And what's great is that I think it's the Google Hangout coming through. So, and what's awesome is that we had some pretty amazing winners. So this guy is Italian. He never participated before in Top Coder. Chinese, Polish, Chinese, Belarusian, Chinese, Canadian, Chinese, Estonian, right? So pretty awesome results, but you want to know how good are the results, right? So we just basically gave them the top prizes for their solutions, and you want to know how good the results are. So what I've plotted for you here is the power output from their algorithms and what the space station can get. And one thing that should be of interest to you, that look how bunched up these are already, right? So this is a very tight neck-and-neck competition. But what you want to imagine is how good is a NASA solution, right? And so this is the NASA solution itself. So, you know, we, depending on how you measure it, and we're in fights with NASA about what the right way to measure it. It's in fact with Boeing. Boeing charges NASA, you know, $20 million a year for this solution. We solved it for 30K, so obviously they'll want to, you know, denigrate our solutions. But what you have basically is our ability in 2 weeks' time for relatively low cost, so like this is decimal dust in terms of dollars, you know, for NASA, being able to come up with great solutions. And that's what we sort of keep seeing repeatedly when we run these contests. We've run a bunch of contests for both NASA, other federal government agencies, as well as for our colleagues at the medical school as well. So one thing to leave you with, and if there's one thing you can take away from this conversation, is a very simple and basic view about innovation. So Natalia showed you all these books. I mean, if you search on Amazon for innovation, you'll see thousands of books. Lots of people talk about innovation. But I want to just boil it down to one thing. And the one thing that I want to boil it down to is statistics, okay? So if you think about innovation, what you care about, right, is an extreme value, right? No matter how you define extreme value, it could be sales, could be performance, could be market share, whatever. What you care about is like the best answer, right? The most further out answer. And if you go back to Stats 101, right? And you remember that statistics says that anything you do, any activity you undertake, there's an underlying statistical distribution, right? And if you do it once by itself, what you'll get is the average value, right? The center of the graph, right? For a normal distribution. It's only when you do things independently do you actually see lots of other solutions come through. And this is what crowds enable us to do. Crowds enable us to get extreme value solutions. So what happens is that inside of a firm, the mean might be shifted to the right, right? The mean might be like, oh, our average solution is better, but the tails is where we win, right? The tails is where crowds come out and win. And that's where we've seen this recurrently happen. And as I'll show you with data from our medical school, what you see is that our tails are pretty darn fat, okay? So it's not just one extreme outlying solution, we get 10, 20, 30, which may mean that in fact, this is probably left shifted in many ways, and it's probably also very, very narrow in terms of distribution. So to illustrate that for you, we ran a challenge again on Topcoder to solve a big data problem in medicine and immunogenomics. I won't bore you with the details, but it's an important problem, especially when you have lots of explosion of data with genomic analysis going forward. And what did we discover? So we had, again, 700 people show up, 122 coders submitting 654 solutions in 2 weeks. Not only did we get lots of solutions, but we also got a diverse set of solutions coming through as well. So that's important. Winners from Russia, France, Egypt, Belgium, US, people that we could never hire. The medical school could never hire and bring abroad anyway. And really high performance. But let me show this to you graphically what this performance was. So this is looking at the overall performance in terms of time to analyze the 100,000 sequences, as well as how accurate you are, right? And you want to be in the top left side, okay? The green dots represent the solutions from our guys on Topcoder. Red dot is NIH Megablast, 20-year effort, millions of dollars spent, okay? Yellow dot is one of my co-authors, Remy Arnaud, MIT undergrad, PhD from Oxford, and has a lab dedicated to this question, right? So he helped with us to design the question. This is his effort over 2 years, and these are all the guys on our side, just kicking the pants out of this problem, right? And by the way, none of them have any background in computational biology, right? Zero, right? So we're basically able to take a problem, this is back to what Natalia said, to take a problem, decompose it in a way so that anybody in the world can participate, and when we do that, we have really super fat tails coming through. All right, and this we see over and over again. So this is diversity of approaches, right? If you look at an XPRIZE competition, what you see are very different approaches to solve the same problem. This is like getting 100 miles per gallon fuel. Here I have also very different types of participants, right? So you have both corporate to one-man bands to families and so forth. And this is what crowds enable. We just get diversity of approaches and diversity of people participating and making this work for us. What we've seen in our analysis of an incentive is that people outside of the normal boundaries of the problem or social groups are the ones that end up winning. And this is a standard finding that we can now sort of go back to and say this is what enables contests to work so well. One question you'll have is why do people do this work, right? This should be underlying it, and a lot of social science is trying to answer this question. So we have 3 explanations. One set of things that people do this for is for extrinsic motives. You do it for the cash, of course. You do it for the market signals you generate from your performance. You do it for the prestige you may get from it. A lot of people also do it because they really enjoy problem solving, right? So if you're on the subway and you see all those people doing Sudoku, right, that's wasted effort. They should be out here writing code, right? Because that's like mental effort that's gone away. Now we can actually put their mental effort to use, right? And you do it for fun, enjoyment, learning, autonomy, and taste. And finally, you do it because you want to belong. There's pro-social reasons to do it too, community belonging, identity. Like, because we do all this stuff with NASA, people say, I get to help the space program, right? That's a cool thing, and they'll exert extraordinary amounts of effort to make this happen. The thing, though, you should be worried about is this an optimal design for contests? And that's one of the big questions we had. Do you always want to open up the number of people in the contest? And the thing to think about is that if you're a competitor, right, you actually want to limit competition, right? Because if there's a prize and there's just 2 of you competing, the odds of you winning are 50%, right? If there's 100 of you competing, right, the odds of you winning is 1 in 100, right? So you don't want competition, in fact, if you're a competitor. And so economic models come back and say that, in fact, it's better to limit competition because incentives drop. And in our analysis of Topcoder, when we see them run a bunch of contests, we in fact see this, that as you increase the number of competitors, performance drops. And so we're like, okay, we're stuffed, right? You might as well just find the 2 best people, let them compete and win. What we discovered is that, in fact, if you account for the type of problems being solved, what you see is that in fact, it's better sometimes to open up the competition when there's lots of uncertainty, when there's multiple different approaches, multiple different knowledge domains needed to solve the problem. And we see that in our analysis that basically for single domain problems, we see this very negative outcomes. But for multi-domain problems, we see much shallower response, but the extreme values, right, the best solutions go up quite a bit. And that's where we sort of say that in the design of contests, when you have simple problems, you actually want to limit competition. When you have more complex problems, you want to open up the stream. You also want to know when crowds don't work. What we've seen is that governance matters. You need platforms available to govern the work of the crowds. And the biggest example that we saw most recently was last year, when the New York Post published 4chan results saying who is the Boston bomber, right? When in fact there was no way for us to verify the results. So we need governance. The second thing we have to worry about is incentives mismatch, right? And this is back to Natalia's question, right? Oftentimes people are asking for, give me a cure for cancer, right, for $10,000, right? That's not going to work. This happened here with X Prize, where they had a challenge to sequence the $1,000 genome, and only 2 teams entered because there was a massive outside market trying to encourage people to participate in this as well. Finally, task interdependence, right? Again, cure for cancer, too complicated, right? Help me figure out one way to catalyze this molecule will probably work for you. So I have to give you a 2x2. It's in my contract with my dean that all HBS professors have to give you a 2x2. I don't know if that works at NYU as well, if that's in your contract.
Something like that.
Something like that, okay. So what I want to show you is, thinking about 2 dimensions of innovation, right? One is the generation of solutions Natalia talked about, and the second is the selection of solutions, right? And those are both knowledge-intensive tasks, and you have views about, is the knowledge required to solve the problem concentrated and narrow in one person, one domain, one company, or broadly distributed, and also the selection knowledge as well. So what we have is that most of R&D works like this, right? Where we think that the knowledge required for us to solve the problem and to select amongst the solutions resides inside the firm. But because we have declining communications and digitization, we can now actually, and modularity, we can actually start to think of other forms. So you, of course, have seen the rise of the consortia, right? Internet consortia came about because we said a few people might have good ideas, but we want selection from a broad base of people and improvement from a broad base of people. We can have contests where a few people select, but lots of people help generate. And then, of course, we have things like threadless and open source, where lots of people both generate and select along the way. All right? And what's happening is that lots of firms are now figuring out how to play in all domains. So I want to end with a video, hopefully it'll work, about a company that's born open that is basically pushing the boundaries of what you think you can do with crowdsourcing.
This is Local Motors. Welcome to The Forge, empowering a community of designers, engineers, fabricators, enthusiasts who are passionate, supportive, informative, inspirational. Community of give and take on a mission to accelerate vehicle development. Open resources. Size doesn't matter. No idea is too small or big. Engage The Forge. Start with an idea. Sketch it, snap a picture, upload your work, and showcase it to the world. Meet experts. No, more like these experts. Evolve your idea. Get the tools you need. Get feedback. Improve your design. See it come to life. Make awesome real. Join a project. Give feedback. Contribute. Maybe compete. Get recognition. Or this recognition. Or even this.
They found a small company in Arizona called Local Motors.
Be a part of something huge. Be a member of The Forge.
And so what's interesting about Local Motors is Jay Rogers, the founder, looked at Threadless and says, oh, I can do this in cars. And I said, you're crazy, this is never going to work. And good thing he didn't take my advice, right? He just said, did it, and so he's built the proof of concept and in fact has a viable business now building cars through community-based development. What's even more interesting is that GE is now partnered with them and said, help us do appliances, right, through this methodology. So they're going to build a micro factory across from GE Appliance Park in Kentucky, right, to show how this works. So it's quite amazing what's going on in this space. And so for me, the 5 lessons for you, again, crowds, you can do contests in communities. Think extreme values, right? What they enable for us. Diverse participation is a big element here. Incentive design, you become incentive designers, right? What was in economics textbooks is now part of practice for people like Narinder. They have to think about these elements quite a bit. And governance matters. Okay, good, thank you.